Welcome to Nova Open Game 2. For the second round, I was paired against Warriors of Chaos. Not really a surprise. There was a large number of Warriors of Chaos players in attendance. After the first game, with not an enormous number of points, I was hoping for a soft pitch for the second round, and what I actually got was Nick Hall, who was not soft pitch at all. Nick got third place at Brawler Bash. He beat me in Southern Assault and scored highly there, I think fourth place. So I knew this wasn't going to be an easy game. So Nick is running his Warriors of Chaos army, and we're going to go through his list. You can see on the left there is a unit of Tzeentch warriors. Most likely these guys have been put in specifically to take the Watchtower. And indeed, they are deployed near the Watchtower. That building on the left is the Watchtower. Then we have a Chimera, a Chariot of Nurgle, and then another Chimera. And then on the other side, he has his BSB. His BSB is on a normal steed, which is a bit surprising that he's not on a Chaos steed for the extra toughness and wound. He has a single sorcerer who's also hiding behind that Chimera. I can't see him from either side. With a Dispel Scroll, just level 2 of Shadow. And that's his only wizard. Then we have another Chimera, another Chaos Chariot of Nurgle. And then we have the Nurgle Demon Prince. Now this Nurgle Demon Prince is rather a stripped down version compared to the usual Demon Prince. So he has a Charm Shield, a Dragonbane Gem, and Soul Feeder, and that's it. So he's cheap and cheerful. And the reason for this is that Nick's running a Chaos Lord of Tzeentch on a Disc of Tzeentch with the 3+ ward save and the reroll 1s. And a Biting Blade and an Enchanted Shield, and that's it. So 2 fighty Lord choices, no level 4. And that's it, basically. Okay, so my deployment, I deployed my Death Star on the absolute opposite side to the Watchtower. I reasoned that I can cut out, that infantry unit of his from the game altogether. So I can be a couple of 100 points up, and I don't need to worry about them in any way, shape, or form. And hopefully I'll be able to get over there towards the end of the game and claim that Watchtower. I deployed one of my cannons behind the hill. Remember, the hills block line of sight. The other one sort of sitting there. I wanted to keep both cannons near to my general and BSB. Make sure they can hold. They're reasonably tough against even things like Chimera. So I want to make sure they don't get isolated. And in general, I've deployed well away from the 12-inch line. I'm not in a desperate hurry to get there. I've got 2 cannons. He's got none. I want to shoot him for as long as I can. There's another view of my alliance there. You can see my man-eaters up on the top right. Just for once, I didn't deploy them within general BSB range. I deployed them in such a way that I could get that shot against his Nurgle Demon Prince trying to strip off that Charm Shield. Okay, so he won the dice roll to go first. And he moved his units very much to a refused flank, moved away from my man-eaters, ignored them completely, moved away from my Death Star, and really put a lot of pressure onto my left flank. Okay, so this is my first turn. I moved up with my 2 small units of Ogres. I put one right in front of his Demon Prince there. And on the left flank, I moved that unit just outside the charge arc of that Chimera there, so they wouldn't get charged. And hopefully I can swing them round behind his monsters and at least give them something to think about. Over on the right side, I've moved my Death Star up a bit. If I can put pressure on his right flank before his faster elements get there, that's good. I've left them well within range of those 2 chariots. That's fine with me. If he wants to take that charge, I'll lose a couple of ogres, but that's 2 threats I can deal with pretty quickly. So in the magic phase, my Heavens Wizard has rolled Common to Cassandora. So I cast Comet to Cassandora, and it wasn't dispelled. So I placed it slap bang in the middle of the board. I placed it right next to my small unit of bulls, whom I also got a +1 toughness buff on, so they wouldn't be completely obliterated, most likely if the thing decides to come down next turn. And this was designed to be a nuisance for him. It's got a variable range, maximum range of 12 inches. If it comes down in his turn, then it'll start with 2d6 +1 strength 5 hits. That's enough to bother, all of his critters there. So I'm willing to take the risk for my bull unit, and I'm just going to, let it fall when it wants to, and hopefully that will mess up his plans with his Chimera. My Mournfang, I didn't move. They were okay where they are. Any movement forward is just going to put me in range of a whole bunch of hits from charge threats from his flying creatures, so they just stayed where they were. Okay, in the shooting phase, I managed to strip the Charm Shield off the Demon Prince and hit him with the cannons, and I was only able to do 2 wounds to the Demon Prince. So I hit him, I wounded him, but he wasn't killed. So that made me a little sad. So this is the start of Warriors turn 2. So he did decide to charge both of his chariots into my main unit, which I was a little surprised he went for that bait. Speaking of bait, my 3 strong bull unit were charged by his Demon Prince, who has, by the looks of things, he's taken 3 wounds, not 2. So he decided to go for that, see what happens, see if the comet comes down. I'd have been very happy if the comet came down at this point, because that would almost certainly kill his Demon Prince, but it was not to be, so the comet did not come down this turn, and the little blue icon there shows how many counters are now on that comet. In combat, to my great surprise, the Demon Prince flubbed his attacks, only getting 2 wounds against my unit, and then the 3 bulls were able to get a wound in against that Demon Prince. Now, remember, that Demon Prince doesn't have an armor save to speak of, but it's still hitting on 6s, wounding on 5s, and then he's got a ward save, so it was pretty unlikely. So that was pretty epic of those 3 bulls there. And you can also see that he's got a fleeing chariot there. That's a chariot fleeing with its tail between its legs after smashing into the front of my Death Star. So after combat, my bull unit was able to reform, so that's how it was able to face the other way. And I declared a charge. And in the end, I decided to charge against the Chimera closest to my Mournfang. I think this may have been a mistake. I was thinking I had the flank charge against that one, and that would help with trying to win combat against the Chimera. It was also the one that was out of BSB range. But at the same time, I wasn't able to make a wheel and get all 3 into base contact. So either way, that's the charge I decided to do. And then with the Mournfang, I just tried to get them as far away as possible. I just pulled them. They were down here where the inset picture shows against my board edge. I simply took them as far as I could in the opposite direction to the warrior army. He had range that 1 or maybe 2 Chimera would be able to charge if he made that charge, but at the same time, there is that comet, and as it happened, the comet didn't come down in my magic phase, so he's now in the unfortunate position of if he makes the charge, great, but if he fails the charge, he's going to end up right in front of that comet. Over on the right, my Death Star charged one of the chariots. He decided to flee. I charged the other chariot. He decided to flee, so I failed the charge. So that's showing the 2 chariots fleeing. And then in the shooting phase, my man-eaters were able to gun down the rallied chariot with just 1 wound remaining. So this is his turn. There's those 3 bulls, and surprisingly got beaten by that chimera. The last one was able to flee, and the chimera didn't pursue in favor for threatening the Mournfang. But he was still in this horrible position where he didn't want to let any of his chimera get within range of that comet coming down. And so in the end, he charged one of them to my Mournfang. He was able to make that charge, and the other ones just moved around below what you can see in this picture. He rallied both of his chariots that fled, turned them around. In the magic phase, it still didn't come down. So there's now 4 counters on top of this comet, and it's starting to be, really bad news if this thing comes down. His BSB couldn't keep up with everyone else, decided to just sort of hang out over the other side of the comet. So here you can see one of the chimeras, so that's this one here, is in base contact, is in close combat with the rear of my Mournfang. This was okay with me. I wasn't going to take too much damage. The Mournfang are fairly heavily armored. I was within general and BSB range. I'm not likely to lose steadfast. Then I'll be able to reform, turn around, and probably kill that chimera. So that was okay. So of the other 2 chimera, one has a foot on the hill, so it can see and be seen over that hill, and the other chimera and his general are on the other side of the hill. So this is just the other side. His BSB is looking to try and pick off the small unit of bulls or the cap. So the comet still hasn't come down. It's still got 4 markers on it. In combat between the chimera and the Mournfang, the combat is a push. We do a couple of wounds each way, and I'm able to reform and turn around. This is much helped by having Troll Guts up, so I'm going to get a regeneration save as well as my 2+ armor. So they turned round. In my turn, they killed the chimera, but since it wasn't first round of combat, they weren't able to overrun. My cannons fired at the chimera on the hill, wasn't able to hurt it. I did 1 wound between the 2 cannon shells. And in the magic phase, this comet still didn't come down. So now that's up to 5 markers on the comet. So in his turn, he charges as much as he can. So he charges his front chimera that's on the hill into one of my iron blasters. Then his other chimera and his general both charge at the Mournfang. So at this point, I flee with the Mournfang. They are not going to survive that. I don't have anything that's going to stand up to this Chaos Lord. So I decide to flee. And the way this flee looked, those guys would catch me easily. However, there is a building in my path, and the rules for fleeing through buildings is if you come in contact with the building, then you bounce on the other side of it, at which point that would put me safely out of range of both of those units. And I rolled a dice, and I got just enough to hit that building, bounce through to the other side. So the general failed, the chimera failed, and the one on the hill did make that charge, obviously, into the Iron Blaster. There was no point fleeing there. That would just put me off the board. Over here, both of his chariots declared a long charge against my Death Star. And over here, you can see the Chimera has charged into the Iron Blaster. And getting a little ahead of myself here, but eventually the Chimera did kill the Iron Blaster. You can see my Mournfang have bounced them through to the other side of the house, so that's what I was talking about there. So once the Chimera kills the Iron Blaster, then it will overrun and eventually go off the board. However, so on this side, he's moved. I've moved my bulls around. I didn't see any way that they could escape his BSB, so I figured getting charged in the front is better than the flank or the rear. And then my cat moved to just block that unit, prevent them from getting into my bulls as well. That Chimera there is not there. That's dead. Finally, the comet decided to come down, and then I rolled for distance. He still had his Chaos Lord and the Chimera potentially within the the maximum 12 inches. Also, I had a unit there. My Death Star was in range. I rolled the dice and I rolled Snake Eyes, and I was a little upset about that. That I would have liked to have killed his last Chimera, but he looked ready to flip the table. I mean, he'd spent the whole game dancing around this comet for the threat that it would just, if he put his Chimera too close, he could have killed all of the Chimera all in one fell swoop. And after all that, it was a 2-inch thing. He could have completely ignored it, and it would have been fine. So that was pretty funny. All right, so what's going on over here? So one of his 2 chariots has made it into my main unit. They did some damage, but I won combat. They stayed. I reformed, and now that chariot's going to get smashed to pieces. His other Chimera is off the board, so it killed the Iron Blaster and then overran off the board. My Mournfang rallied, so they turned round there. And then I have one shot with the Iron Blaster against the last of the Chimera on the board, or that Iron Blaster is going to get it as well. Over on this side, his BSB has charged this unit of bulls. It does a bunch of wounds, but I hold. Eventually that unit's going to get killed. That lone remaining guy of the first unit of 3 does rally, and he sticks around because he's above 25% on his lonesome, and in fact he can bellow all to himself and get that +1 leadership. Okay, so my Death Star broke that unit, that chariot. And then my cannon fired at the Chimera, and I managed to hit and wound. He failed his save, killed it dead. Cannonball didn't bounce and kill his general, unfortunately, but that would have been even better, but I was happy with the Chimera dead. Now, after this, I didn't take any pictures, so I'm just going to have to describe what was going on. But so for the turn 5, you can see his last surviving Chimera off the board there, waiting to come back on. He came on to this area here. He couldn't find any way to place the Chimera that wouldn't escape from the Mournfang, so he simply moved it up and put it in front of the Mournfang. And then moved his general up over around here so that his general would be able to charge my Mournfang. So my Mournfang charged the Chimera. They killed the Chimera. His general charged me in return. Won combat, broke my Mournfang, and then my Mournfang fled. And then I had one last turn. Turn 6, bottom of 6, I had one chance to rally, and they didn't rally. So they counted as destroyed. I lost the whole unit, so that was a bit sad. I tried to shoot his Chaos Lord with the cannon, but 3+ ward save, reroll 1s. It just bounced off his ward save. And so that was the end of the game. So with the final scores, the victory points difference was about 900 victory points. So that was a second level win, 11-5. I got 2 victory points. I was able to run my Death Star for the last 2 turns straight at the watchtower and get them into his deployment zone because they had a big enough unit. He brought his unit into my deployment zone, so I got +4 victory points. He got +2 victory points. Neither of us killed each other's general or each other's most expensive unit. So that's all the victory points that we got. So thoughts on the game. The comet had a huge effect on the game. I mean, that was just a spell I threw out there because it was turn 1. I didn't really have very much else to do with my dice, and then it absolutely dominated the game when it refused to come down. It completely destroyed his ability to engage my main unit with everything. If he could have surrounded it and hit it all at once, then he stood a good chance of killing everybody, but he was unable to do that because the comet just screwed everything up. So I enjoyed the game. I thought it was well fought on both sides. There was a lot of tactical maneuver, which I like in a game. I'm sure I'll play Nick again in the future, so we'll see. Maybe we can make it best of 3. All right, so next round I was up against another Warriors of Chaos army. So I will put that video up shortly, and thanks for watching.